My wife and I have a drinking problem. Well, more accurately, we have a drink problem. Because we buy drinks and don't drink them. To fix this, I'm going to build a shelf to put in this awkward corner of our garage with the fridge, freezer, and questionably placed hose hookup. Welcome to Failing Up Projects. To start any project, it's a good idea to have some goals to shoot for. For this, I'll be happy if it holds drinks, fits around the fridge and freezer, has a place to store a hose, and is good enough. It doesn't need to be perfect. After taking some initial measurements, I start by cutting some 2x4s to length for the legs and cross supports. Next, since I tend to care more towards the beginning of a project, I use some clamps to help me start screwing these boards together with some 2.5-inch construction screws. First, I add some feet to the two supports that will end up forming the shelf in the middle. Then I move out to the top corners of the back support structure. With a new and not bent driver bit, I add the front foot to the base of the middle section before taking some more careful measurements. I found the cheapest laser level Menards had to offer and use it to help me clamp the back legs of the shelf section to the back cross support. Hopefully this will make sure they are vaguely parallel and intersect at a rightish angle. Now that I've got everything dialed in, it's time to move everything away from the wall a bit so I can screw the two pieces together. Since I'm so confident in how square the shelf section is, I'll go ahead and cut some slats from a couple of 1x4s to use as the bottom shelf surface. Then, with a carefully crafted scrap piece of 1x4 as a spacer, I screw the slats to the footboards. I start from the front because if my spacer doesn't give me even spacing, I want to be able to hide the odd spacing towards the back where it'll be harder to see. With all of those screwed into place, I tack down the front middle legs to keep them in place while I assemble the rest of the front of the shelf frame. I guess it's still early enough in the project for me to care, so I'll use some more clamps to get everything lined up to finish framing out the front. In hindsight, I should have cut a couple of boards to prop up these cross braces instead of trying to clamp my way to victory. But hey, at least I thought to use some shims to prop up this end to compensate for the uneven garage floor. Once I've gotten everything more or less in the right place, I attach the cross braces with some 5-inch construction screws before I rinse and repeat on the other side. I'll use a board to clamp the front middle legs to a set width while I make sure they're square with the back legs. Then I'll screw them into place to finish the front of the frame. Next, I attach the sides for the middle shelf to the legs. After my experience with the side cross braces, this time I do use some boards to prop things up and make sure that it's relatively level. Notice I'm pre-drilling these holes to make sure that these 5-inch screws don't cause any issues. And I might as well pre-drill for the smaller screws while I'm at it. Now that those are in place, I will repeat my process of perfectly spacing these slats for this shelf. With this, the structure is pretty much done, so it's time to move it into place and hope everything fits. Since it looks good so far, the next step is to mount this power strip in a place that'll stay dry if any water leaks from the hose connections later. I'm not very confident in the tiny screws I use to mount it, so I'll use a couple of zip ties for some added insurance. The shelf isn't going to move again at this point, so I move the appliances to their new homes and plug everything in. Yep, I'm a Reds and Bengals fan. Go ahead, do your worst in the comments. You can't hurt me more than they do. For the top of the shelf, I'm just using some 1/2-inch plywood. I'm combining pre-cut 2 and 4-foot sheets to make up the full 6-foot length of the shelf. I would have rather used a full 4x8 sheet and cut it to size, but those don't fit in my truck. Once I've gotten the plywood oriented how I want, I secure it to the frame with some arbitrarily spaced construction screws. It's looking good so far, but we're not done yet. The fun part, and totally not the real reason for this build, starts with unboxing this overly complex but cheap wall mount I got online. Seriously, I've never seen one of these that required so much assembly, but it seems sturdy enough for the light work I have planned for it. The lag screws it came with were clearly intended to be drilled long ways through wall studs, but they would be sticking out the back of this shelf by an inch or so. As a workaround, I got some shorter ones from Menards and used 8 instead of the 4 it came with, so that way roughly the same number of threads would be in the wood holding it up. The instructions said not to install it with an impact, but I won't tell if you don't. I've had a couple of TVs in the garage before, but I've always had to hook up some sort of streaming device for them to be useful. I didn't want to mess with the extra hardware this time, so I picked up this smart TV during an early Black Friday sale. I know it's an LED TV, but I still can't believe how thin and light this thing is. Probably light enough to mount it with double-sided tape, but I already installed the wall mount, so I guess I might as well use it. entirely too much tape on the protective film, so sorry, no super satisfying defilming today. A couple days later, the mini hose that I had ordered got delivered. It's too cold to use it now, but I went ahead and put it in its new home anyway, so it'll be ready to use in the spring. So, here it is. It's not pretty, but I have a neater garage and a happier wife, so I would call this project a success. I hope you enjoyed the video or maybe found some inspiration for your own future project. This is the first video I've made, so I'd appreciate any comments with suggestions for how to make better ones in the future. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you again.